This is the second video in the rational expressions, equations, and functions unit for lesson 1, the introduction, and we're on the second page, third page if you consider front and back. So this is on simplifying rational expressions. Before we talked about how to find the restricted values. Those are the values that make the denominator equal to 0, and then the domain. Those are all values that the function can take on, all input values the function can take on. So we're going to work on simplifying. A rational expression is considered simplified if the numerator and denominator have no common factors. Just like when you simplify a numeric fraction, you can't have any common factors, so you have to get rid of those. So what you will do is first factor the numerator and the denominator. Make sure you put those factors in parentheses. You'll list the restricted values. You'll cancel out the common factors, and then you'll just write the equivalent simplified fractions. So let's go through that. The numerator has a common factor of 4. So I can factor out a 4, and then I have 2x plus 1. So there are two factors in the numerator, 4, and 2x plus 1 is the other factor. The denominator, well, this is the kind of stuff you're going to need to do off to the side, because when you factor this, you're going to need some space. So first thing I'm going to do is factor out the greatest common factor, which is x. All three of those terms have x in common. So I pull out an x first. Now I'm going to factor this trinomial using the x method. And we've gone through that so many times that I hope you have it down. So I'm just going to tell you what the final factor is. It's 2x plus 1, and then x minus 3. So the denominator factors to x, 2x plus 1, and then x minus 3. The denominators have 3 factors. So the restricted values are what makes the denominator equal to 0. So x cannot take on the value of 0. It cannot take on negative 1/2, and it cannot take on 3. Basically, we have 3 asymptotes. Now we're going to go ahead and cancel out common factors. 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1 are both common factors, so they can be canceled out. 2x plus 1 over 2x plus 1 is 1, so it's gone. Now I'm going to write the equivalent simplified. So I get 4 over x times x minus 3. So the g of x function that you see originally is equivalent to this g of x function. It's simplified, but notice that the restriction of negative 1/2 is still there, even though that restriction isn't shown here. All right, so you're going to have a couple of these that you need to do on your own. You're going to try number 4 and number 3 on your own. And when you submit this note, guys, these should be done. It's all about factoring, stating the restrictions, and then simplifying. All right, so let's look at number 1. Number 1, the numerator factors. 6x and 20 have a common factor of 2. And I'm left with 3x plus 10. The denominator has a common factor of 2. And I'm left with x plus 5. So the only value that x can't take on is negative 5. That would make this denominator 0. And then the common factors are that I can cancel out are 2. So the g of x function equivalent is 3x plus 10 over x plus 5. Please do not do this. This is completely wrong. Don't do that. 3x plus 10 is a factor and x plus 5 is a factor. The only way to cancel those things out is if they're exactly the same. Don't do that. There is your final simplified version. Number 2, the numerator factors to x squared, x minus 3. And the denominator factors to x, 4x minus 5. The restricted values, x cannot be 0, and x cannot be 5/4. Now I'm going to cancel things out. There are 2 x's here. X squared is the same thing as x times x, so I can cancel out one of these for one of these. So I have 1 x in the numerator left over. So q of x simplified is x times x minus 3 over 4x minus 5. I have to keep these in parentheses because I've got two factors. This denominator is only one factor, so I don't have to keep it in parentheses. If you prefer to keep things in parentheses, that is fine. All right, so try 3 and 4. You have factored the denominator of 4 already, so you need to submit those with those finished. And problem set. On the next page is the problem set REEF1. You should begin these, but we'll work on them next in class. There's a lot of factoring involved, so make sure you're strong with factoring. Hope this helps.